Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into a time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Bob Bailey in the West Coast program Let George Do It. This episode goes back 75 years to April 19th, 1948, the Penthouse. And we thank you for tuning in on this Wednesday, and you know what that means. April 19th, the 109th day of the year, 256 days remaining till we get to 2024. Charles Duryea claimed to have driven the first automobile in the U.S. on this date in 1892 in Springfield, Massachusetts. Joan of Arc received her beatification on this date in 1909. Mae West sentenced to 10 days in jail for obscenity for her play Sex. Of course, in 1927, just the use of that word was not considered appropriate. President Roosevelt announced on this date in 1933 the U.S. would be abandoning the gold standard. Shirley Temple debuted on this date in 1934 in Stand Up and Cheer. RCA, NBC began regular television broadcasts in 1938. And in 1951, General Douglas MacArthur spoke before Congress about communism.
The communist threat is a global one. Its successful advance in one sector threatens the destruction of every other sector. You cannot appease or otherwise surrender to communism in Asia without simultaneously undermining our efforts to halt its advance in Europe.
In that same speech, the general would retire from the military by quoting an old West Point barracks ballad.
Old soldiers never die. They just fade away. And like the old soldier of that ballad, I now close my military career and just fade away.
General Douglas MacArthur on this date back in 1951. 1956, actress Grace Kelly married Prince Rainier III of Monaco. 1987, The Simpsons made their TV debut in the short Good Night. It was a segment of The Tracy Ullman Show. 1989, a gun turret exploded on the USS Iowa, killing 47 sailors. An investigation would find that one soldier, Clayton Harwick, was responsible for the explosion.
We know that he talked of dying in an explosion. We know that he talked of dying in the line of duty and being buried at Arlington National Cemetery. And we have an FBI profile by FBI psychologists with the opinion he took his own life and hoped it would look like an accident.
Later investigations would prove less conclusive, and the investigation closed. In 1993, the 51-day siege of the Branch Davidian building outside Waco, Texas, ended when a fire broke out. FBI spokesman Bob Ricks.
We never went in. We did not introduce fire into this compound. It was not our intention that this compound be burned down. I can't tell you the shock and the horror that all of us felt when we saw those flames coming out there. It was, oh my God, they're killing themselves.
81 people died in that conflict. 2 years later, 1995, the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City was bombed.
Everybody, let's get out of here. Now.
Federal Building on 5th is going to be your main target. You have half of the building collapsed all the way from the roof down. The building north of that on 6th Street, you've got the roof completely gone, and it looks like it's caved in through a couple of floors in that building.
It's very frustrating for firefighters because there are some areas where we're reaching and touching people, but we just can't get to them. They were carrying several children out of the building, giving them to parents, putting them in their arms. Now, the ones I saw seemed to be breathing. They were covered in blood, and I mean small children, looked like under the age of 6.
It looks like something that we expect to see on national news in Bosnia or somewhere, and unfortunately, it's hit us here in Oklahoma City.
It looks like his left eye has
The bombing in Oklahoma City was an attack on innocent children and defenseless citizens. It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil. We will find the people who did this. When we do, justice will be swift, certain, and severe.
I guess we pulled 6 dead babies out and a couple of dead women. And it's just the most devastating.
Everything fell on top of
It's the most devastating thing I've ever seen in my life.
It's just like an atomic bomb went off. The ceiling went in and all the windows came in.
The whole building shook, and then everything just started crashing down on top of you, and you just kind of hit the floor and waited till it all stopped.
Take it home! Take it home! Hold it up! Take it home! Get it! Go! Let's go, Kurt. Hold on.
It's just total chaos. Blood everywhere. We're pulling out bodies and putting them in body bags, just laying them on the ground. It was just unbelievable. Something you'd see in a movie, like a war zone. Just bodies laying around, and it's nothing you'd want to see.
Something like a terrorist attack. The bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building on this date in 1995. Joseph Cardinal Ratzenberger elected Pope Benedict XVI on the second day of the papal conclave back in 2005. He would retire, and then he recently passed. Fidel Castro resigning as the first secretary of the Communist Party of Cuba after holding the title since July 1961. He would do that on this date in 2011. Now, on this date in 2013, Boston Marathon bombing suspect Tamerlan Zvarnik killed in a shootout with police. His brother later captured hiding in a boat inside a backyard of the suburb of Watertown. And in 2021, the Ingenuity helicopter became the first aircraft to achieve flight on another planet back in 2021. Passing away on this date in history, Charles Darwin, actress Ruth Hussey, and Vice President Walter Mondale. All righty, born on this date in history, Elliott Ness, Hugh O'Brien, Dick Sargent of Bewitched, actress Jane Mansfield, a man who produced a lot of novelty songs, Dickie Goodman, Dudley Moore, born on this date, and man who sang about the Saturday morning confusion and wrote the song Little Green Apples and Honey, Bobby Russell, born on this date in history. Betty from TV's Father Knows Best, Eleanor Donahue, 86. Actor Tim Curry from Rocky Horror Picture Show, Tim Curry, 77 today. Indy race car driver Al Unser, 61. Actress Ashley Judd is 55. For the movies Pineapple Express and Spider-Man, actor James Franco is 44. Also, actress Kate Hudson, the daughter of Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, Kate Hudson, 44. And from Star Wars Episodes 2 and 3, Hayden Christensen is 42, though some of the people celebrating the 19th day of April is their birthday, and if this happens to be your birthday...
Hi, we're the 4 freshmen, and we just want to say, Happy birthday to you!
And from 75 years ago today, April 19th, 1948, Bob Bailey and Let George Do It on this Wednesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. Now on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, we go back 75 years to April 19th, 1948 for an episode of Let George Do It starring Bob Bailey, broadcast on the west coast of the United States.
Standard of California, on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and standard stations throughout the West, invites you to Let George Do It. Another adventure of George Valentine.
Personal notice. Danger is my stock and trade. If the trouble you're in is way off the beaten track and you need help that's strictly confidential, you've got a job for me, George Valentine. Write full details.
Dear sir, you employed the word confidential in your advertisement. Well, I need confidential help. My enthusiasm for birds has led me into a predicament. I was watching starlings, but I saw something that was never meant to be seen, and it keeps haunting me, if I really saw it. Unless my eyes deceive me.
My eyes deceive me. I was the witness, the only witness to an outrageous crime. There's nothing more I can say in a letter. Please contact me at once, and it's signed Elliott Wormsley.
Wormsley, that sounds like a name on a Dickens.
Elliott Wormsley, MS, PhD, Statistical Services, Baxter Building.
Birdwatcher, huh?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of canaries is this statistician interested in anyway?
Oh, stop kidding, George. That's a pretty grim phrase. I was the only witness to an outrageous crime.
And he's in a predicament. That's a twist.
What was it he could have seen?
I don't know, Brooksy, but let's see what we can see. Let's drop in on Dr. Wormsley.
These are the binoculars, Mr. Valentine. The ones I use to watch starlings on that penthouse roof down there.
Uh-huh.
But that's almost 3 blocks away, Dr. Wormsley.
I know.
The river house, huh? Pretty swanky.
Golly, George. You can see halfway around the world with these binoculars.
All right, Angel, stop playing. Back to you, Dr. Wormsley. So you looked for starlings and saw a killer hawk, eh?
Something like that, Mr. Valentine.
Okay. Now, just what was this outrageous crime? What did you see that you shouldn't have seen?
Murder.
I guess I dropped your binoculars, Doctor.
Did you say murder?
I can't be sure, but I just trained my eyes down there, as I've been doing for weeks. And in that instant, I'm almost certain I saw a man push another man off the roof. Of course, he had his back to me.
What do you mean, almost certain, Dr. Wormsley?
Well, it was over in a second, and I didn't expect to see what I think I saw. Besides, statistics show that the element of error in visualization over 100 yards is 14 to 1,000.
Yeah, well, we'll take your word for that. But why didn't you go to the police with this story?
Oh, no, Mr. Valentine. I'm a modest man, and I don't like publicity. Besides, I'm coming up for the presidency of my club. And, so many people think bird watching is, a little peculiar.
Yes, I know. You wouldn't make it. But murder is a very serious business.
Mr. Valentine, if I had seen any mention of what I suspected in the newspapers, I would have volunteered this information to the police. But as it is, no crime has been reported.
Well, that's right, George. I didn't see anything about it.
Still, the picture of those 2 men keeps haunting me. I'm thinking of my reputation, but I do have some public spirit, and I have to make sure. My conscience wouldn't let me rest if I didn't.
Oh, I see. And you want me to check at the river house and soothe your conscience?
That's it, young man, precisely. It shouldn't take you more than a day, and I'm willing to pay your usual fee.
Okay, it's a deal, Wormsley. Oh, Brooksy.
Yes, George?
Just on a hunch, get down to the Bureau of Missing Persons. See Finley.
Okay.
Find out if anybody's been reported missing from the river house.
You will keep my name out of this, won't you?
Oh, yes, we'll do our best, Professor. I'll meet you back here later, Brooksy.
Okay, George.
I'm going over to the river house.
Oh, you're very fortunate, Mr. Valentine. Penthouse B is vacant, and it's only $5,400 a year.
Yeah, a point of information, Mr. Stevens. As I get it, the sun deck of this wing facing the river is for the exclusive use of Penthouse A and B.
Oh, it's very private. And Penthouse A is occupied by the Dunlaps, Philip Dunlap, the broker. So that would put you in very good company, and only $5,400 a year.
Well, I was thinking of something a little better, but I'll let you know.
Look who went and rang my doorbell. Wouldn't be the full of brush man, would you?
Not unless my samples are showing.
Oh, come on in anyway. I hope you'll pardon the sunsuit. I wasn't expecting company.
No, it's nothing at all. I mean, practically.
I was out on the roof sunbathing.
I'm Mrs. Dunlap?
That's right.
Well, I'm the chap
It's been a dull afternoon. Suppose we wait a while before you tell me what you want. Hmm?
Well, as a matter of fact...
You aren't going to stand there, are you? Here, sit down.
The truth is, Mrs. Dunlap, I may be your next-door neighbor in Penthouse B.
Oh? Well, that would be the first improvement they've made in River House without raising our rent.
I thought it'd be a nice gesture to sort of drop in on my possible neighbors and introduce myself. There is a Mr. Dunlap, isn't there?
Yes, but you needn't worry about him. He hasn't been home for 2 days.
Oh, just like that, huh?
That's Philip for you. Thank heavens. He must have decided to go up to our cabin in the mountains to brood. Or he may be staying at his club. But as I said, this looked like a dull afternoon. We're not going to let it be one, are we? Oh, fine. That wouldn't be Philip. He has his key.
Well, whoever it is, just explain I'm looking at the penthouse next door.
Hal.
Listen, Paula, we haven't heard from Philip yet, and there are letters and contracts he has to sign downtown.
All right, Hal. I'm not my husband's keeper.
Oh, just the same, I thought you might be worried. Oh, I didn't know you were having company.
Well, this gentleman may be our next-door neighbor, I hope. Mr.
The name's Valentine.
Really, Paula? At least now you know his name.
Mr. Valentine. This intense young man is my husband's secretary, Hal Sterrett.
How do you do? I don't know what you're going to do, Paula, but I'm going to call the police and report Philip missing.
Please do that, Hal. I'd feel so much better. Lord, how I hate righteous men, especially when they're young. So petulant. Now, where were we, Mr. Valentine?
I was just about to leave.
A mood is a very fragile thing, isn't it?
Oh, you've been right neighborly, ma'am. Goodbye.
I don't think it's goodbye. Anyway, it was very nice, even not having known you.
Oh, Mr. Valentine. Mr. Valentine.
Oh, Dr. Wormsley.
I was waiting for you to come out of the River House.
But why? I thought you made it a point you were to be the unknown factor in this deal.
After you left, I did some calculating.
Yeah, good for you, good for you. There must be a way of getting into this empty lot without climbing over that fence.
And in my calculations, I discovered that the odds against anything as extraordinary as this happening to an ordinary man like me would be about 14,000 to 1.
You don't say.
So, if you don't mind, Mr. Valentine, I'd sort of like to tag along with you and see if I'm really that 1 in 14,000.
Looks as though there's a gate in this fence. If we can get these trash cans out of the way.
George!
Hey, Brooksy, you should have brought a friend. We'd have a fourth for bridge.
Oh, hello, Miss Brooks.
Oh, George, there's been no report of anyone missing in this district.
Oh, thanks.
I was on my way to your office, Dr. Wormsley, when I saw you heading for the River House. So here I am.
Well, kids, let's see what we shall see.
It's just an overgrown lot.
That's right.
George, you think that if Dr. Wormsley is right, the man would
Nothing like checking, Brooksy. Dr. Wormsley, you did say that when you saw a man pushing another one off the roof, his back was towards you?
If I saw what I thought I saw. That's right.
That would mean he was facing away from you, toward the river.
Yes.
Well, there's the river behind that high-board fence. And on this side of the building, there are only the windows and the elevator shafts and the stairway.
So no one would have seen him fall.
Mr. Valentine, over here, look.
Huh?
That's a man. I mean, it was.
Past tense is putting it mildly.
Oh, George.
Then it wasn't my imagination after all.
No, Dr. Wormsley, it wasn't. And just to quote a few more odds, it's at least 1,000,000 to 1 this is the body of Philip Dunlap.
And now, back to tonight's adventure of George Valentine. It's only natural for a member of the Bird Watchers Society, even when he's a professional statistician like Dr. Wormsley, to be watching starlings on a penthouse roof. But when instead his binoculars revealed one man pushing another off that self-same roof, well, that's just sort of a case George would get involved in. It's about an hour since George found Philip Dunlap's body in the weed-covered lot back of the apartment building. And now we join George and Claire talking to Lieutenant Riley at Homicide.
Yeah, what is it?
Lieutenant Riley, Donnelly just brought Hal Sterrett in. Do you want to see him now?
No. Let him cool his heels out there a while with Mrs. Dunlap.
Yes, sir.
How about Dr. Wormsley, Lieutenant Riley?
Okay, Valentine, okay. When Lieutenant Johnson turned the case over to me, I didn't know what I was getting in for, but I'll do my best to keep your client's name out of the case.
Ah, you're a pal.
Well, as a matter of fact, Lieutenant, you owe our little bird watcher a debt. He did uncover a murder.
Miss Brooks, I don't want to appear ungrateful.
Oh, no.
I can always use a new murder.
Oh?
I'm overjoyed that when you and Valentine stumbled over this homicide, you were thoughtful enough to let me know about it.
Oh, well, it's nothing at all.
If you hadn't, I'd lock both of you up and throw the key away.
Well, now that you're back to your own sweet self, would you mind telling us what you found out from Mrs. Dunlap?
Oh, dear. 75 years ago, from April 19th, 1948, let George do it. The news from 75 years ago comes up when Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on this Wednesday continues on your favorite station. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, Mike Lindell and MyPillow launching the MyPillow 2.0. Now, when Mike invented MyPillow, it had everything you could want in a pillow. Now, nearly 20 years later, he's discovered a new technology that makes MyPillow even better. Of course, the patented adjustable fill of the original MyPillow, but now with brand new fabric with a temperature-regulating thread, it's the softest, smoothest, and coolest pillow you'll ever own. Say goodbye to tossing and turning and flipping your pillow over in the middle of the night. And more great news on the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer with my promo code Wyatt. MyPillow 2.0 is 100% made in the USA, 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. Go to MyPillow.com, click on the radio podcast square to receive the MyPillow 2.0 buy one, get one free offer. Use my promo code Wyatt or call 1-800-928-4715. Thanks for tuning in to Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox here on your favorite station. We're listening to an episode of Let George Do It starring Bob Bailey, as it was originally broadcast on Monday, April 19th, 1948, in the newspapers of that Monday 75 years ago. These were some of the headlines. 2 unsuccessful attempts to attack munitions dumps during Italy's fateful Sunday election reported early this morning. The report of a second unsuccessful attempt to blast a government arms supply was received several hours after the polls closed in the Sunday phase of the election, in which Italians thronged to the voting places to make their choices between East and West. The great outpouring of voters heartened anti-communist leaders. An unofficial but reliable source said an attempt was made to blow up an army dump at a town in Lombardy, south of Milan, in Italy's heavily populated Red North. Police would neither confirm nor deny the report. Rebel leader Jose Figueres yesterday said Costa Rica's civil war would be continued unless his terms for a peace were respected immediately. Figueres made the statement in a telephone interview from Cartagena, Costa Rica, where he has established the capital of what he calls the Second Republic. Figueres claims to control the entire east coast of the country and to have troops within 8 miles of San Jose, the capital. Robert Magadoff, American correspondent expelled from Russia on spy charges, said yesterday the accusation was trumped up by the Russians for internal propaganda purposes. Magadoff and his wife flew to Berlin from Moscow. Their baggage and even the linings of their clothes were closely inspected by agents who saw them off in Russia. Magadoff, Russian-born, had been a Moscow correspondent for 12 years. British and American reports said last night fighters from Transjordan's Arab Legion had occupied the Jewish settlement of Neve Yaakov, New Jacob, 5 miles north of Jerusalem. Official Jewish sources denied capture of the settlement, a key position on the main highway to the Arab military stronghold of Nablus. The Jewish informants said the Arab attack was repulsed and the battle was continuing. The State Department has received unconfirmed reports that communists or communist-backed groups may try to seize power in Chile and Ecuador within the next few weeks. A department source made it clear that the report lacks verification, but one of them tends to support official announcements by the Chilean government that the communists there planning for an uprising May 1st, envisaging the kidnapping of President Gonzalez and other government and army leaders. San Franciscans felt a slight earth tremor yesterday, just after noon, but 42 years to the day since the city was shaken into a mass of rubble and charred ruins by one of the most severe earthquakes in history. Bill, 16-year-old lion at the Forest Park Zoo, snoozing in his cage. A spectator tossed a cigarette butt at Bill to make him move. Bill did. Mane caught on fire. Bill darted around his cage, expressing his displeasure as only lions can. Attendants extinguished the fire without serious damage to the lion house or the lion. And the spectator, 40-year-old Cecil Hurley of Charleston, Missouri, wound up, like Bill, behind bars. He'll answer to a charge of cruelty to animals in court. Those some of the day's top news stories as reported in the newspapers of Monday, April 19th, 1948. On your radio, Let George Do It, starring Bob Bailey. The conclusion next. On this Wednesday, Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thursday's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, his only radio starring role in a continuing series, and his last main media series, Sidney Greenstreet, in the New Adventures of Nero Wolfe from 72 years ago, April 20th, 1951, The Case of the Lost Heir. The daughter of a blind millionaire, as familiar, returns to him after being thought dead for 13 years. But is she his daughter? We'll see tomorrow on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Let's wrap up this Wednesday edition. Bob Bailey, Let George Do It, from April 19th, 1948, 75 years ago today.
Well, she said she was out shopping all that afternoon, and the doorman is alibying her. When she got back, this kid, Starrett, was still there, waiting to see his boss, Mr. Dunlap. He hung around a little longer and then beat it.
Did Mrs. Dunlap suggest that there might have been any bad blood between Starrett and her husband?
Well, she wasn't too anxious to admit it, but it seems young Starrett was being fired.
Yeah, but what was the reason? Bad spelling or making Google eyes at the boss's wife?
I wouldn't know, not yet. Mrs. Dunlap was too broken up to go into every little detail.
Broken up, huh? I could just see her tears flowing like wine.
What do you mean by that?
Well, just thinking out loud.
Yes, Lieutenant?
You can send Starrett in here now.
Yes, sir. Well, it looks to me as though Mr. Starrett has some explaining to do, or else.
Well, we know that he was there that afternoon, and your Dr. Wormsley saw a man push Dunlap off the roof. Come in, son. Come in.
Lieutenant, I don't understand any of this. Oh, you.
Hello, Starrett.
What are you doing here?
Just a neighborly interest in the fate of your late employer.
Say, what is this?
Yes, George, I didn't know you two had met.
Well, never mind. Now, what's this about Dunlap deciding to fire you, Starrett?
Well,
Why?
He didn't like my work, I guess. That's the usual reason, isn't it?
You'll save a lot of time if you tell us the truth.
You asked me a question, and I gave you the only answer you're going to get.
You had a fight with your boss, didn't you?
No.
In the struggle, you pushed him off the roof.
No.
A man saw you from an office building.
He couldn't have.
Oh, Lieutenant. Yes, Donnelly?
Can I see you a minute?
Yeah, okay. I'll be right back.
Hey, tell me something, Starrett.
Yes?
If you were already fired, why were you so worried about Dunlap? Even going to the Bureau of Missing Persons yourself?
Because he was the best friend I ever had.
It hardly jives with the story Lieutenant Riley is building up.
Hey, Starrett.
Yes?
You're a college man, aren't you?
Oh, what of it?
Syracuse, 1942?
What? Why, yes, but how did you know?
This, Phi Beta Kappa, too, aren't you?
That's right. But what are you driving at, Lieutenant?
Well, this Phi Beta Kappa key. The medical examiner found it clenched in Dunlap's fist. It's yours.
I don't know how it could have gotten there.
He must have ripped the key off your chain as he fell off the roof. Okay, Starrett, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
It's nice of you to visit me in jail, Valentine. But what's the use of going over the same story again?
I'd say it intrigues me, Starrett.
Paula would go right on denying I ever gave her that key. I can't prove it. Why should you believe me any more than anyone else?
Because I happen to know a little more about the lady in question. Now, look, friend, let's stop being delicate. Paula decided she liked your type and made you the odd man in the triangle. That's why Dunlap was giving you the gate.
Oh, I tried to break off with her, but she always managed to be around, taunting me. She had me spinning on my head.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Say, did you have a fight with Dunlap when he fired you?
No, I wish there had been. That would have been easier than the way it was.
Go on.
He was hurt, and I was sick and ashamed of myself. He knew there were others, and that made the whole thing even cheaper.
Now, surely just firing you, Sterrett, wasn't the answer for Dunlap.
Oh, he knew that. One of my last acts as his secretary was drawing up the papers that cut her out of his will.
Now, wait a minute. That just puts you in deeper. That means Paula had no motive. Hey, how about insurance?
Well, there was a big policy Philip took out recently with Paula's beneficiary. He didn't change that.
Oh, wasn't that kind of strange?
Oh, it wasn't something he overlooked. There was a funny smile on his face when he told me he was leaving that as is.
That's very interesting.
Oh, look, Valentine, I didn't kill Philip. When I was there, I didn't even know he was out on the roof.
Okay, I'll just take it easy. I'll do what I can.
What can you do? You'll never get the truth about that key out of Paula. And Dr. Wormsley swears there was a man out there struggling with Philip. What man? A burglar? One of Paula's ex-boyfriends? Or possibly the man on the moon?
I think I'll drop in on Paula again. I don't know what I expect to find, but with a gal like that, the unexpected is bound to be interesting.
If it isn't my next-door neighbor. What now? Cup of sugar? Couple of eggs?
Well, maybe I did make a little fib, but you didn't believe me anyway, did you, Mrs. Dunlap?
Paula.
Okay, Paula. Too bad about young Sterrett, isn't it?
What a thing to say to a grief-stricken widow. Can I get you anything? We may as well make ourselves comfortable.
You've got a head start in those lounging pajamas. They're really something.
I was wondering when you were going to notice them.
Hey, you know, I never appreciated before what lounging pajamas can do for a woman.
Didn't you?
No. I might say if she were out on a roof and someone happened to see her from Dr. Wormsley's window, he might mistake her for a man.
If he'd never seen a woman before.
His office is more than 2 blocks away. But to get back to our hypothetical woman,
yeah.
How much do you guess she'd have coming to her if her husband were murdered and there was a nice fat insurance policy, the only thing he didn't cut her out of?
We've gotten a long way from lounging pajamas.
Oh, I don't know. And I can't help wondering what the lady in question would do if she had a perfect patsy and a difficult young man who was suffering pangs of conscience. She might even do something brash if she happened to remember the Phi Beta Kappa key he gave her in a tender moment.
Tell me, have you confided these flights of fancy to anyone else?
Oh, no, my sweet. I wanted you to be the first to know.
And you, my sweet, will ruin your eyes reading all those pulp magazines. There's another angle to this lady of the rooftops.
Oh, what's that?
With all the insurance money she's sure to get, and with an admiring eye for a certain broad-shouldered character who seems to know what it's all about, she might make life very pleasant for him. Very.
You couldn't say he knew what it was all about if he fell for a pitch like that, now, could you?
Oh. I'd better get my cigarette before we go on with this little game.
Or you can quit playing anytime you want to.
My dear old father used to play a lot of poker. He used to say the game was never over till the last bluff was called.
Uh-huh. Didn't your old man tell you that even one of those effeminate-looking automatics make a loud noise and leave holes when they go off?
I have a permit for this gun.
Uh-oh. Come on now, Paula. Let's see if you can answer that phone with one hand.
You know, Georgie, that could be your next to the last glib remark.
When that phone stops ringing, you don't worry yourself into a tizzy trying to guess who it was.
We've been supposing a lot of things here tonight. Now let me top it off. Suppose they found you draped on the floor there with a bullet in your head.
Okay, what then?
I was in bed when I heard sounds in the living room. I opened the door. There was a figure in the darkness. After everything I'd been through, I didn't stop to think. I shot the prowler.
I gotta hand it to you, Paula.
Skip it. Just sit there on the couch a few minutes till I get my story straight. When I shoot you, I may have to tell the story a dozen times tonight, so it's got to be perfect.
Okay, you stalled too long. You missed your chance, beautiful. It'd be a mistake to shoot me now.
What are you talking about?
Behind you. There's somebody out there on the penthouse roof.
You know I'm smarter than that. Whoa, who's it?
I'll take the toy now.
Oh, you
Drop
let
it.
go of that, you.
There you are. I tried to call, and then I remembered about the empty penthouse next door and the adjoining sun deck, and... Oh, for Pete's sake, somebody say something.
Oh, just a little parlor game, Brooksy.
Yes. I was just showing Mr. Valentine how I almost mistook him for an intruder.
Oh?
Lieutenant Raleigh will probably find it very amusing when we tell him about it.
Oh, that ain't the way I seen it.
For the time being, Angel, we have to see things Paula's way. But more important right now is to see if we can get a man out of bed.
No trouble at all, Valentine. Don't mind selling a little insurance any time of the night.
Are these all representative policies, Bennett?
Yes, sirree. Anything you want, we've got it. Life, accident, comprehensive liability, tornado insurance, plate glass.
Any insurance against fatality during parlor games?
What's that, Miss Brooks?
Just a private joke.
This life insurance policy.
Oh, any amount you want. Just a simple physical
Well, these
examination.
clauses at the beginning, they're pretty standard in all life insurance policies, aren't they?
Yes, indeed. Each one of them meant to protect policyholder and the company.
What's up, George?
Well, thanks a lot, Bennett. You've been a great help.
Yeah, but look, old man.
Sorry, shopping around, but I'll keep you in mind. Let's go, Brooksy. Now, Brooksy, first thing in the morning, I want you to check with all the druggists in this section of town around River House, Dr. Wormsley's office, 20 or 30 blocks in each direction.
Oh, my aching
I'm going to be
feet.
with Lieutenant Riley. I hate to think of his blood pressure when I mention one little word.
Autopsy?
That's the word.
Valentine, if I had any hair, I'd tear it out. What are you talking about?
Well, now, look, it can't do any harm, Lieutenant.
No one in his right mind can doubt how Dunlap died. This Wormsley saw him shoved off the roof. Then the body was found sprawled all over an empty lot 12 floors below. Cause and effect.
I have every reason to doubt that Sterrett killed Dunlap.
I suppose you're going to tell me Mrs. Dunlap killed him, huh? That she used to be the strong woman in the circus.
I didn't say she killed him.
Then who? What? Ah, for the love of heaven.
How about that autopsy, Lieutenant?
All right, Doctor. Will you tell Valentine here that he's just been wasting our time?
I wouldn't say that, Lieutenant.
Huh?
What'd you find?
Enough poison in Dunlap to stop an army dead in its tracks.
All right. All right, I can't argue with the laboratory. But I don't get it, Valentine. How many times do you kill a man, poison, throw him off the roof? It's a wonder we didn't find a knife in his back, too.
Doctor, just how does this particular poison work?
Instantly. Every muscle in the body becomes rigid all at once and stays that way.
Then it's possible that after a couple of days, the effects of the poison could be mistaken for rigor mortis.
Not only possible, Mr. Valentine. It seems just what happened.
Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. If Dunlap's fist was clenched like that the moment the poison took effect, how did that Phi Beta Kappa key get in his hand?
That's the point, Lieutenant. It was forced into it. And certainly Hal Sterrett didn't do it.
That does it. That does it. I'm going to have Paula Dunlap picked up, and she'd better have all the answers. Oh, no. No, Mrs. Dunlap, you're going to have to do better than that.
I know how it looks, Lieutenant Raleigh, but you're wrong, believe me.
Paula, you had to be the one who put that key in your husband's hand. Sterrett wouldn't sign his own death warrant.
I know, but
Here are the facts the jury will hear. You were the man Wormsley saw wearing lounging pajamas. You had the motive, the insurance money, so you poisoned Mr. Dunlap, then pushed him off the roof to implicate an innocent man.
All right. All right, I'll tell you just what happened.
Remember, Mrs. Dunlap, you're doing this of your own free will.
Hal Sterrett left that afternoon. I went out on the roof for a moment. Philip was there, an empty highball glass next to him. He was dead. Well, don't look at me that way. He was already dead. He'd committed suicide.
How do you know that?
There was a note, cruel note, saying that I was the cause of all the unhappiness in his life. He was leaving me without a cent.
Okay. I suppose you have the note?
No, I destroyed it.
Oh, no, that wasn't very smart.
Don't you see? I had to. So no one would ever find out it was suicide.
Now, wait a minute.
There was a clause in his policy. It's in most policies, saying that if he killed himself within the first year, beneficiary wouldn't get a cent.
That much is true, Lieutenant.
What I did was wrong, but I wasn't going to let Philip leave me without a cent. That'll stand up in court, won't it? Even though I did destroy the note, they'll believe me, won't they?
Since you asked my opinion, the answer's no. But my job is finished now.
Oh, no.
George.
Hey, how goes it, Brooksy? What luck?
You were right. I found out what you wanted to know at the Gotham Pharmacy on Morton Boulevard.
Now what?
What am I going to do? I've got to find a way to prove I'm innocent. This isn't fair.
Remembering that gun you held in my face and Hal Sterrett, I'm tempted to keep my mouth shut and let you stew in your own juice.
What do you mean?
Me and you both.
I don't know what charge you're going to hold her on, Lieutenant, but it won't be murder.
What?
Did you hear what he said, Lieutenant?
What are you talking about, Valentine?
Brooksy just found out that Philip Dunlap bought that poison himself at the Gotham Pharmacy.
On a doctor's prescription he forged.
Oh, George, Oh, how can I ever thank you?
Oh, that's easy. The next time you're up on that roof alone, see if you can prove the law of gravity really works.
George, don't you think that was sort of a morbid joke for Dunlap to play on his wife?
Well, Angel, Paula played a few pretty grim jokes herself.
Yes, but to leave her name in that insurance policy, knowing that she wouldn't get a penny.
Crime, punishment, so much.
Hello. Anybody here?
Oh, Dr. Wormsley.
I just thought I'd drop in and take care of that little bill I owe you.
Oh, thanks.
How do the birds look these days, Doctor?
What? Oh, yes. That reminds me. I must thank you, Valentine, for keeping my name out of the Dunlap case. After all, I was the key witness, and I... Oh, dear.
Well, that's all washed up now.
Thank goodness. Oh, yes. Mrs. Dunlap isn't living there anymore, you know.
No?
It seems 3 young ladies are sharing that apartment now. And yesterday...
Why, Dr. Wormsley. What kind of birds are you watching now?
Oh, well, they were very wild canaries. Oh, goodness. What am I
Tonight's adventure of George Valentine has been brought to you by Standard of California on behalf of independent Chevron gas stations and Standard stations throughout the West. Let George Do It stars Robert Bailey as George, with Frances Robinson as Claire. Wally Mayer appeared as Lieutenant Riley. Tonight's story was written by David Victor and Herbert Little, Jr., and directed by Don Clark. Also heard in the cast were Louise Arthur, Fred Howard, Peter Leeds, Charles Seal, and Charles Lund. The music is composed and conducted by Eddie Dunstetter. Your announcer, John Heaston. Don't forget to listen again next week, 1 hour earlier, over the same station, to Let George Do It. This is the Mutual Don Lee Broadcasting System.
April 19th, 1948, Let George Do It on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Visit our webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand and learn about building a classic radio collection of your own. You can find our social media links there. You can contact us. You can also buy me a coffee. That Buy Me a Coffee money helps us acquire additional classic radio collections and helps us maintain our distribution channels. That's at classicradio.stream, and I want to thank everybody who has helped us in that regard. Please thank this station, support their advertisers, tell your friends the greatest radio shows of all time are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox, right here on your favorite radio station.